you know, we've got 30 odd cars to drag out of a bush block down the Lockyer Valley as a way of raising some money for our Nissan Skyline build. And my Jeep Gladiator was damaged after I foiled an attempted theft of it right here in my driveway a few weeks ago. I'm not getting that back from the panel beaters anytime soon. And the car behind me is actually an Isuzu D-Max that was given to me through Shannon's Insurance from Hertz Rent-A-Car. And I don't think either of those organisations would appreciate me crashing through the scrub, dragging rusty old buckets out to send off to the scrapyard with it. So over the last couple of weeks, I have sold some car parts I had kicking around the shed and raised enough money to buy the cheapest GQ Patrol you're gonna find on Facebook Marketplace here in Southeast Queensland. It's a 1989 petrol gas Ford Maverick, which is a Nissan Patrol GQ, and it does have its good and bad points. The bad points are there's a little bit of rust in the rear wheel arch, there's a little bit of rust in the back corner of the roof, there's a lot of rust in where the battery tray used to be, and I haven't actually seen it running. The reason I bought this car though, the good points, is all of the bushes underneath are brand new and were replaced just before the car was parked up. It's got a dual battery system fitted, it's all set up for towing, and it's got a factory fitted rear diff lock. And when I purchased it, the bloke threw in a brand new set of tyres and wheels so that we can get a roadworthy a bit easier. Now, I'm gonna spend the next 3 days challenging myself to do a bit of a slam door resto, trying to keep the budget under $5,000. That includes registration, roadworthy, and any parts I may need. So I'm gonna have to scrape, scrounge, and dig about in the shed to make do with what I've got, because for 5 grand, I wanna get this thing on the road as quick as we can, and then start dragging cars out of the bush so we can get our Skyline on the road and in a subscriber's driveway. I haven't actually seen this car running yet, but when I picked it up, the fella told me his mate dropped it off at his house a few years back and it was coughing and spluttering and kept dying. I actually reckon it's a fuel delivery problem, so my plan here is to disconnect the fuel line just before the mechanical pump, blow a little bit of air back down into the tank just to hear if I can hear the fuel gurgling and things like that, because that means our fuel lines are all clear. And then I went down to Autobarn this morning, had a yarn to the lads, they've done me a solid on the prices, and I've got myself a new fuel filter and I picked up a 12 volt inline fuel pump. So I'm going to spend a little bit of time wiring all that up, and again, just because we're doing it on the cheap doesn't mean that it has to be garbage, and hopefully that's the problem, because once this thing's running, I'll give it a quick service and then we'll hook into the actual restoration part of it. So let's see if I'm right or not. Oh yeah, that smells stale as. Righto, so all I've done is put a little bit of tape around the air nozzle. I'm just going to put it on the fuel line here that goes back to the tank. So you can't quite hear it from here, but I've blown a little bit of air back down into the fuel tank using the air hose, and you can hear it gurgling away with the fuel filler cap off. So what I'm going to do is try and crank the car and see if we can get fuel up to, this would be our outlet to the carby, and if that's not going to get fuel picking up to it, then we will have to wire up a little 12 volt pump. I'll pop the new filter in, and I've actually bought a second filter, so we're going to have that before the pump as well, because I don't know what's in the tank, and if we can avoid pulling the sender unit out, then that's just the way it is. I know in a perfect world we should, but it's all part of the challenge, isn't it? So let's grab some gear and we'll see what we can do. So this here is a solenoid that when you flick it from petrol to gas, it shuts off the fuel to the carby. So what I'm going to do is disconnect it on this side of the solenoid, the one that goes to the carburettor, and then I should be able to, well actually, while we got it here, let's blow a little bit of air through it. So that solenoid at the moment is actually closed. So I reckon if we put power up into here, that'll probably, we'll just make sure we flick it on the gas. This should open, and then we should get fuel up into it. But then what I'll do is see if we can crank the car. So this is our fuel line going to the pump, up to this solenoid. Right, so that's good. So, learnt our lesson from last time. We've got the bit of a rag over that to stop any sparks. Let's see what we get fuel. Few technical difficulties there, ladies and gentlemen, in that I forgot to press the record button. But what you've missed was me checking the fuel in the tank. It did have it in there. Me siphoning the fuel out, it was stale and old, and then me putting some compressed air gently into the fuel filler neck to push a bit of fuel up to the fuel line in the engine bay, which we did get. I've tried cranking it and it's not drawing fuel, so I dare say the mechanical pump's having some dramas, but I did spray a little bit of Aerostart in the carburettor as I was cranking it out of curiosity, and it fires. So what I'm going to do is wire up our little 12-volt pump, chuck in the 2 filters, and then we'll see if we can get it running. So let's get into it. Look at that, straight in. So what I've done is I've plumbed up from the tank to a clear fuel filter. Now that's just temporary. So I've actually left myself enough fuel line where I can just connect it straight to the pump. And then I've got the factory fuel filter after the pump. So we've actually got 2 filters here. I'll remove the little inline one from the pump itself and I'll retrofit that later. But the reason I put the clear one is because I reckon we're going to pick up a heap of gunk from the tank if this car's been sitting for a while. And so that's just a stopgap thing to try and curb that. So I'm going to put a bit of power to it and we'll see what happens. It's just to see if we get fuel up here. I'm going to connect that to that, and then we'll just put a bit of power to the pump. Alright, and there is a fuel leak. There you go, there's fuel absolutely pouring out the back of the mechanical fuel pump on the side of the block. Now, I could have gone out and spent 150 bucks and bought a new one, but this is a budget resto. So the whole idea is to try and get it under the $5 build. So a $50 electric 12-volt diaphragm pump is what we're going to use. All I'm going to do now is remove that mechanical pump from the equation, and we'll just plumb the factory fuel filter straight up to the LPG fuel cutoff solenoid. The fuel pressure is the same from the electric pump, from the mechanical pump, so we're not going to be sort of like over pressuring or anything like that. And then once I've done that, we'll have a crack at starting it. Rightio, ladies and gents, here we go, moment of truth. The fuel pump is working. I'm just going to flick the LPG off switch, and there we go. As soon as I flick that LPG off switch, we lost power to the pump. So our system works. Let's flick the switch on again, see if we can get it running. So that's our LPG on. We're getting fuel. Well, it's running. I wouldn't say it's running well. At all. Well, that's not ideal. The alternator's not working, so that's just another thing to add to the list. So by checking my distributor cap, I've now introduced a fault somewhere. We don't have a pulse signal. So all I was doing was just like trying to rotate it just to tune it by ear, and it just slowly died out. So I'm gonna have to sit down now and go through and diagnose all this. Just having a quick look, there's a couple of crimp connectors in there. Someone's put a Pectronics ignition system in it in the past, so I reckon we're gonna have a bit of a look at that. I'm gonna switch the cameras off and we'll have a look. All right, welcome to day 2 of our little GQ slam door resto challenge. Now, yesterday I started off well in terms of I got it running pretty quick, but then it just slowly petered out and died on me. And I started chasing electrical gremlins, and the more that I dug into the engine bay during the late part of the day there, the more electrical issues I found. And I actually did a little bit of research last night, and I came out at about 9-10 o'clock last night to confirm it. But it looks like that Pectronics Hall effect sensor in the Dizzy has died, because when the engine stalled, it just kind of petered out and then stopped. So I've done some testing with a test lamp and the multimeter and a magnet as per the Pectronics website, and everything's pointing at that little igniter having failed. So I've gone out this morning and I've purchased some points and a condenser, because one of those new Pectronics igniters is 150 bucks, and we're trying to do this on a budget. So 12 bucks for a set of points, 12 bucks for a set condenser, and then I also bought a new top radiator hose because we need to fix that. My plan today is, I dare say I'm not going to get this done in 3 days, but we'll still have a crack, is I'm going to rip the radiator out. I'm going to tidy up the engine bay. I'm going to try and get this thing running, and then I'm going to give it a clean. If I can get all that done today and then maybe start on some of the body work, we may have a dip at getting this done in the 3 days. I'm skeptical, but we'll have a go, see what happens. So everything being equal, they'll sit in there like that. So I've just grabbed a ratchet and I've chucked it on the crank. So my points need to be 0.5 of a mil. New points and condenser are in. I've tested it. We've got a pulse with a test lamp. So what I'm going to do from here is put the Dizzy cap back on, rotor button, all that sort of stuff, test if we've got spark, see if it runs. Then if it does, we'll run it up to temperature, flush the radiator, clean it, and then we'll give the tappets a bit of an adjustment. If we can get that done today, then I'll be stoked. From here, I'm going to take the thermostat out. I'm going to flush out the block as best I can. I'm going to give the radiator a clean. And then, instead of going out and buying a $15 can of degreaser, I went down to Bunnings today and bought a $5 can of oven cleaner. And I'm going to give this a crack at giving the engine bay a wash just to see what kind of results we get. You never know, it might actually be the next mechanical hack that you see kicking around. So I'm going to grab the hose and we'll start cleaning it out and let it run up. Once that's all done, we'll adjust the tappets. So what we've got here is degreaser up the back where the rocker cover's obviously just been weeping a little bit and it's just a heap of grime and all that sort of stuff. And then we've got up the front oven cleaner, which is all around the distributor where the O-ring on the distributor's been weeping over time. So it's all, just you can already see that, it's already working. So I'll grab the pressure washer and we'll see, give it a wash and see what happens. So as you can see, the oven cleaner has actually done really well. It's cleaned it back down to the clean aluminium and it doesn't even have an oily residue on it. And if you can see just down there where I didn't spray the oven cleaner, the pressure washer didn't even lift. Now the degreaser, it's done an okay job, but it's still left patches of like oily residue, and that's even still, we've got like a little bit of an oily residue on it. So what I'm going to do is hit the entire engine bay now with some oven cleaner. I bought 2 cans. I'm going to see what that does. Now $5 oven cleaner. There you go, 10 bucks for 2 cans of oven cleaner. I've used 1.5 cans and managed to get the engine underneath the car done, so gearbox sump and the radiator support panel and the fan shroud. And interestingly, it actually gets the road grime off all the rubber hoses and that sort of stuff, so they look brand new, which is going to help me check them to see if they're corroded or frayed or brittle or anything like that. I will say though, it does say on the instructions to not use an enclosed area, and if you breathe it in, it is a little bit caustic and it does leave a bit of a soapy residue on the car, so you've got to give it another rinse off once or twice after you've done. But 10 bucks for 2 cans, and we've got a clean engine bay that I can now pull apart and try and get this thing tuned. It's just getting worse and worse, ladies and gents. The carby was leaking a little bit, so I popped the carby off to have a look. Need some gaskets for that, which, to be fair, car that's been sitting around, paper gaskets, you're going to get that when you put fuel into them. They just deteriorated. And I thought maybe that was the reason why it was running rough, and then I decided to take the valve cover off and adjust all the valve clearances, and found that ×4. So now we've got some bent rods that we have to try and sort out. So what I'm going to do is try and pop them out and straighten them, just in the spirit of what we're doing. I know it's not the done thing. If I can try and find some spare ones kicking about, I'll drop them in. But it'll be an interesting little experiment, a bit of a bush mechanic fix. And I'll get this rebuild kit ordered. And then what I'm going to do is tidy up the wiring. There's not much I can do in terms of the engine bay. I'm just going to start on the bodywork. So a bit disappointing, but you get that when you get an old car and start playing with it. So we'll get into it. Here we are at the start of the last day of our 3-day GQ Slam Door Challenge, and it is safe to say we're not going to get it done. Now, when I purchased this car, there were lots of indicators that said mechanically it should be right, such as brand new clutch and brake reservoirs, brand new distributor cap, brand new suspension, bushes all through it. So I was sort of under the impression, cool, we'll get it going, we'll give it a quick tune, we'll give it an oil change some hoses, flush the radiator, and the next 2.5 days should be a case of just hooking into the bodywork, give it a cheeky Raptor coat paint job at the end. That was not the case. I was not anticipating an electronic ignition system that just decided to die when we did the car going. I definitely wasn't anticipating the bent push rods when I opened the valve cover. We've got an alternator that doesn't work. So there's just lots of little things that I didn't factor for. And that's not, you know, that's just the part and parcel of getting old cars from paddocks. That happens. So my goal today is I've gone down to J-Car and I've bought myself a roll of some conduit. I'm going to tidy up and test all the electrical harness in the engine bay and get it all nice and neat, because just because you're doing something on the cheap doesn't mean it has to be rough. So we're going to spend the day testing all the electrical components. There's a gas cutout switch we've got to test. There's this horn in the corner we've got to get sorted out. The diff lock vacuum system needs to be sorted out with the solenoid. If we can get that done today, that means that our engine bay is a little bit cleaner. I've got a new carby on order. We're going to get a cheap Chinesium one for 160 bucks. We'll slap that on when it comes back after Easter. And then hopefully in the next week or two, this car will be on the road and we can head down to the Lockyer Valley and start dragging all the cars out of the bush with it. So I'll grab some electrical tape and side cutters and we'll hook into it. Now, here's a good one, ladies and gents. So, some stage in its life, we've picked up power from our ignition circuit and we've cut it to the point where we can't splice it. So we've introduced 2 points of failure in the crimp connector, and we've used some smaller gauge wires and we've doubled them up to try and get this to work. And then these have actually snapped off over time. So not only is that a fire hazard, we're going to fix this. So we're going to, same as that one, like, and that would have been, so that's where they picked up the power supply for the gas. So this would have been done when the gas install was put in. So that's a bit rough. But anyway, we'll get into it, we'll fix it. Little bit of a handy hint here, team. When you're doing any kind of electrical work on your car, doing harnesses and that sort of stuff, have a full roll of electrical tape, but I always keep a half a roll handy for those tight little spots. But if it gets really tight, what you can actually do is take your roll, grab a screwdriver, and then spin some onto your screwdriver like that. And then you can actually get your screwdriver in there nice and tight and wrap it nice and neat around whatever it is you need to get into. So that's just a handy little hint that I learned from an old fella in the industry, and it does work really well. Here we are at the end of day 3 of our GQ Slam Door Challenge, and I got absolutely nowhere with this car over those 3 days. Now, in my head, I was anticipating spending half a day getting this car running, changing a filter, unblocking a fuel line, fixing a leaking radiator hose, finding a vacuum leak, stuff like that, and then spending 2.5 days hooking into the bodywork. Now, I could have easily not have filmed this last episode and pretended it never happened, and you just would have seen the GQ rock up in one of our future episodes. But I like to keep things genuine here at Real Steel Rescue. So what I did is I come out this morning with the goal of tidying up all the electrical harness in the car, and that is what I've done. There's a big pile of scrap copper off to the side here. I went under the dash, ripped out speaker wire, old UHF installations, Scotch locks, you name it. Found a fire hazard from the LP gas install where they'd done a dodgy repair, and squared all that away. So we now have a nice, clean, neat engine bay that when I get back from my Easter break, we can put the carby on, get the car tuned, and then hook into the bodywork, because we have got 30 odd cars to rescue from down the Lockyer Valley, which we're either going to scrap or part out to raise money for our R31 community Skyline build, which we're going to get you guys, the subscribers, involved in. If you haven't done so, check out some of our other videos and you'll learn all about it. I'm going to head off for the Easter break. When I get back, we're going to hook back into the GQ, but until then, don't forget, keep it real. And where are those bloody side cutters gone that I friggin' lost this morning? They're down here somewhere.